Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Sports Talk 920. I am your host, Michael Goodman, and we are live here in the Saturday night, or Sunday morning, I guess you more say. Daylight savings time is upon us, or going to be upon us here shortly. I believe at 1:59 here Eastern time. We'll be going back to 1 o'clock, so we'll be going back an hour. Getting dark earlier, but still the sports world is still seeing a lot of action here over the past week and into the weekend, and it's just a good month. October, November, this is the high season of sports, and of course, much better than where we were about 4 or 5 months ago back in, or longer than that, I guess, probably about 5, 6 months ago back in June and July, when it's kind of that in-betweener kind of era in sports. But of course, got to lead it off to the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series for the first time in 108 years. I know a lot of people either were waiting, 8 minutes for it from bandwagon fans, and there were people waiting 80 years plus to see the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. And it was a thing, I was pulling for the Cleveland Indians to win it, especially me growing up in the Milwaukee Brewers, being a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and ever since I could basically remember, they were division foes against the Chicago Cubs, so that little rivalry ensued. But I know that a lot of my family that are into sports, a lot of them grew up being Chicago fans, and still rooted on the Milwaukee Brewers, but still had that soft spot in their hearts for the Chicago Cubs. So that one goes out to them. And really, how exciting of a series. I believe both teams scored, I think it was 27 runs by the end of, after 7 games. So, it almost couldn't have worked out any better. And the way that game ended, going into extra innings, the Indians looked like they were going to put another curse on the Cubs when they had the Cubs had the 5-1 lead. And, they came right back, and maybe it looked like Joe Madden overused Chapman. Probably did. Brought the Indians right back into the game, but the Cubs still able to prevail at the end in the 10th inning and held on to the win and hung on to the World Series. So, it was a pretty cool sight, especially for Cubs fans and and the bandwagon fans too, which, a lot of times when these situations happen, that's almost when a lot of people such as myself get upset, especially when I'm not particularly a big fan of the Chicago Cubs. That you'll see a lot of these bandwagon fans come out, and it'd be one thing too. Especially living in this Fort Wayne area now, you do get a lot of people that root for the Cubs, and I know a lot of people that have rooted for the Cubs that did it the whole time since I've lived here, but now I've seen a Pizza Hut delivery guy having the W flag in his car, and a lot of Cubs hats running around lately, and really almost more Cubs stuff than you see around opening day or during the times of like the All-Star break and during the summer when baseball's going on, and to me and it's not like the Cubs were a team that maybe came out of nowhere, almost like maybe the Indians did to get to the World Series, and it kind of rejuvenates you because I'll be honest and say like a lot of the Brewers gear I had wasn't necessarily worn a lot because there was things to like about the Brewers as far as maybe being a developmental team, but as far as wins and losses are concerned, there really wasn't that much to get excited about, and I just seen more Cubs gear, in the past few days that you'd think, I'm not saying every single person that wearing Cub gears is a bandwagon fan, but yeah, it gets you going. And one thing I am worried about, and the new in the season that probably means the most right now, the NFL football season, we have the Oakland Raiders 6-2, and they've been long considered my second favorite team, and even through all the lean years that they have faced. But I have a feeling that you'll start seeing Raider fans coming out of the woodwork as well. But That being said, we'll move on to the next subject here. And we was hoping to get Rudy on this week, but unable to do so. But Rudy and I had a pretty good conversation this past week about the state of the Packers. I came on last Sunday night after all the games were played. I believe after the Cowboys-Eagles game. And basically said that, it sucks that the Packers lost, and it's, in just such a defeating way. And it was, at that time too, you had the Vikings at one loss, but especially now, I think in retrospect, the good things that you could take away from that win is that offense seems to be faced in the right direction. And, before the next time Rudy comes on here, got to set the record straight that I said in the right direction, because it looked like they only played maybe 3 quarters of really good offensive football. And granted, Rudy's point is too that they did play against a bad defense, but in a game that Rudy himself did not feel that it was even worth playing because they were so decimated by injuries. For the fact that they had a really good shot of winning that game, and only losing it by 1 point, I think speaks for maybe the job that McCarthy is doing. And I'm starting to give him maybe passes back because, the injuries at running back, the injuries at wide receiver, even to get this offense and how bad it struggled, even against some poor defensive teams. Even look at that New York Giants game back a few weeks ago on Sunday Night Football, the game they won. That offense wasn't clicking really that well, but we're still able to pick it up, and obviously they struggled in other games along the way, in a couple losses too, against the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings, and of course, they did lose, and offense looked pretty good in their last loss here, but and really, I think it's just a testament of how that NFC is kind of going right now. I mean, the Falcons, they look like they kind of lapsed in some of some what they try to focus on. They got Dan Quinn, a defensive coach. They've been allowing a lot of points. Their defense isn't cracked up to what they normally are, or what they want, or the direction I guess they want to go. You look at their offense. They always, you have Matt Ryan, you have Julio Jones. You're going to have a high-powered offense, or you should, week in, week out. And and you look at the Minnesota Vikings now. You have coordinator. Oh my God, I can't think of his name off the top of my head now. Oh my God, Norv Turner. There we go. Norv Turner resigning after a couple bad weeks, 2 straight losses, and basically, they were in that position. I kind of feel like they almost had they were like the poor man's version of the Denver Broncos. Where this year's Denver Broncos, I wouldn't say last year's Super Bowl winning team Denver Broncos, where they had to rely on their defense basically to win for them week in and week out. And if their defense had a lapse in the game, if they allowed more than 17 points, that's basically the Vikings benchmark, where it's going to be hard for them to score more than that unless, I believe, I'd have to go look it up, but I think a lot of the times that they scored over 17 points were in games that the defense put up some defensive touchdowns, and maybe it was the right decision. Maybe they weren't going in the right direction. Maybe he wasn't working with Sam Bradford as well. But there's a lot of different factors of why that offense, I think, wasn't trending in the right direction. They had some of the injury problems that Green Bay had, especially at the running back position, especially going to last week when you didn't have McKinnon. You were just relying on Matt Asiata and, Ronnie Hillman as well. And Hillman really didn't provide much of a punch on Monday night. But, give credit to the Bears for winning that game, and Jay Cutler coming out there and probably his job's done in Chicago, but looking, maybe auditioning for other places next year. But anyway, going back to that original point, the NFC basically wide open. I still think, and and the Cowboys, I think, have the best record and maybe are that slight edge best team in the NFC. But maybe we've seen signs of weakness from the Dallas Cowboys, and they might, by the season's end, so much can change. They might not have it. I don't think they're like the New England Patriots where it looks like they're unstoppable. I wouldn't say that necessarily about the Dallas Cowboys, but you maybe have a Dallas Cowboys, that slight edge, and then you have the good chunk of maybe the Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles, Atlanta Falcons, Seattle Seahawks. They're all just lumped right in there, and there are just pound for pound in a slugfest of who might be the best team in the NFC. So the NFC side of it, I think, when we come January, if things do, again, as I said about the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of things can change going towards the end of the season, and a lot of things can change better or worse for any of these teams in the next month and a half here or so. But as far as the Green Bay Packers are concerned here too, looking a little bit healthier, still not quite where they're gonna quite where you want them to be, but anyway, I would have to say that I kind of like the chances of the Packers getting better coming down the stretch. Once I think Rollins will be back this week. Randall, he's still probably going to miss a few more games. We don't know if we're going to get Sam Shields back or not, but I still think if you get Randall or Rollins back, especially both of them back, this team will be a hell of a lot different. Down maybe later in November and into December, but luckily they have what should be. It's not going to be easy per se because we're facing the Indianapolis Colts. They do have a porous offensive line, almost similar to one of the Minnesota Vikings, that they could put pressure on Andrew Luck. But Andrew Luck, he's been used to being the one man show out there, and he's putting up some pretty good numbers despite being I think a 3-5 team right now. So that's something to look for, I guess, going into tomorrow's game. Especially with a banged up secondary that the Packers do have, but again, getting healthier should help. But as far as this game's concerned too, for the offense, a very weak defense going into the Indianapolis Colts. So maybe 3 games in a row where to get that offense going. Not saying it's there yet, not saying we're gonna be able to have this high-powered offense if we play Seattle. When we play Seattle later on in the year, when we play Minnesota again, or once we get to the playoffs, I wouldn't say that, but these are these things that do give you confidence boosters, gets you into the flow of the game, and hopefully that will come true. But anyway, what I'll do here too is, since we are actually doing the show here before Sunday, I will do the pick 'em for this week. I'll pick the games for tomorrow, game by game. I'll try to get to just the NFL because I do have all the other games going on here as well. That would be tomorrow. First game up, well, we did have the game again on Thursday where the Atlanta Falcons, again, after beating the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, came back and pulled a pretty good offensive showing, 43-28 on Thursday Night Football. Continued rolling and maybe moving themselves up, that in that power rankings too. Maybe saying that, hey, we had a few tough losses early in the year where we're kind of learning from it. I know they got a few more sacks. They got Rodgers and key points of that game on Sunday. They had some good ones against Winston too on Thursday, so they look to be back. But anyway, going into tomorrow's games, you have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Cleveland to play the Browns. The Browns are 7-point underdogs in this game. Maybe a game that could we consider this game potentially a trap game for them? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Kessler is going to be getting the start tomorrow. They're basically just maybe doing auditions for where this team's going to be built in next year. There's going to be times where the Browns are going to get a win.